welcome. So we've got a small crowd, but that's cozy, so that's good. Oh, people are still joining in, great. So what are we going to be talking about today? So that's B2C Commerce Cloud, and well, basically all of the jobs that are available in the ecosystem, because B2C is kind of a niche within Salesforce. It's an acquired product. Not a lot of people know about it, and maybe the commercial presentations do not always give you the full story of what's going on within B2C Commerce Cloud. But before we dive into that, let me quickly, if it wants to pop over, one quick. There we go. Let me introduce myself. I am Thomas. I am the head of commerce at Forward from Belgium. I have been in e-commerce, I think, since the start of my career in 2010, 2011. So over a decade. I'm getting old. So I started out as a developer, moving from one platform to another. Started with something called Intershop, and then moved over to Demandware just when Salesforce decided to acquire the product and rebrand it to Salesforce B2C Commerce Cloud. In 2022, so last year, I was awarded the Golden Hoodie for, well, community contributions and trying to get people to understand what B2C Commerce Cloud is, and also with the development of everything around B2C Commerce Cloud. And this year, thank you for, if anyone here voted for me, I was awarded the MVP, also for those contributions and allowing me to speak at events like these. If you want to know more about B2C in an advanced career, I am also a Trailhead Academy instructor for the ARC 300 course, which is the Architect Certification Preparation course, which is after the developer certification. And besides that, I like to blog about anything that I read about, learn about, what's new in B2C Commerce Cloud, release notes, a summarization, because there's a lot of information going around on different websites within Salesforce. And it's a lot of information to take in, and I try to summarize all of that information, make it readable, make it easy for people to understand what is going on in this ecosystem. And it's growing. There's a lot happening in e-commerce. And that it's really hard to keep up with everything that's moving. And well, let's just face it, if we're talking about career, this year has been a challenging start, starting in November last year, last year in total with the war in Ukraine. Inflation, electricity bills went up the wazoo, gas bills were becoming unpayable. And this year, just buying food seems to be a luxury commodity, or at least some food appears to be going up in price in certain moments. And it does not seem to be going to go better in the coming months. The second, all of the layoffs. I think the news has not been an optimistic one since November. Salesforce laid off a large amount of people. Partners have seen a lot of layoffs happening, and not just within Salesforce. If you look at all of the big tech, the numbers of people going into the job market have been staggering. Even 2 weeks ago, even other companies just going bankrupt. The banks, Silicon Valley Bank, I think it was called, just suddenly decided, not decided, to cut the bill. And at the final, we have the restructuring happening. So after the layoffs, a lot of things have been moving within Salesforce. Account managers have been replaced, account managers have disappeared, new roles have been introduced. And as a partner or as a customer, it has become increasingly harder to see what's going on. The transparency that was there before, I think the bearings that we had before seems to be gone a little bit. So hopefully within a few months, that balance will be restored and we'll have a good communication again, not just with partners, also with Salesforce to get the ball rolling after those layoffs. I think there's still a few sectors, I mean, hopefully it's done now, but I think last week I still saw a few people switching positions in Salesforce, so there's still a lot of moving parts happening. But let's see what we have in the audience. So what do you desire? If anyone wonders, I'm watching Lucifer on Netflix right now. If you didn't get the rest. Who here wants to be in a business analyst position or an admin-like position? What are your roles that you're looking for? No one looking for business analysts, admin role? Okay, we have 1, 2, all right, 3. What about, oh, 1 is enough. Architect roles. Okay, 2 architects. Developer? No developers. All right, these are just some of the roles that there are. I'm going to give a bigger overview later in the slides, but at least, okay, we have architects and somewhere more on the functional side, so that's good to know. I'll adapt the presentation to my audience. But let's first explain what is actually Commerce Cloud. It's, like I said at the beginning of the presentation, it's a acquired product, or at least it's a range of different products. If Salesforce mentions Commerce Cloud, it can be quite tricky to figure out what are they actually talking about. So here's a list of products that are under the Commerce Cloud wing. We have B2C Commerce Cloud, formerly known as Demandware, acquired in 2016, finished in 2017. We have B2B Commerce Cloud Classic, which has been replaced with B2B Commerce Cloud on Lightning Web Runtime. We have D2C, which was called B2B2C before, and also B2C Commerce Cloud. I think if you go into the interface of Salesforce, you start a new D2C, you create a new B2C Commerce Cloud. I think that's where a bit of the confusion comes from, because you have B2C as a separate product, and you have D2C, which is basically on the core platform. Besides that, since 2 years ago, there is a headless offering. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into headless as a technical field, but basically it's your storefront separated from your backend, which is a completely different product where you visualize all of the information and talk to APIs of the platform. Next to that is omni-channel inventory for near real-time inventory management, which is a separate product used in order management, which is another product and also is available for B2C customers to use, because inventory for retail, etc., is very important, and the more real-time your inventory is, the better. And at the last one, it's marketplaces, though I haven't heard much happening with marketplaces over the past. There were some trainings, but for some reason they all got canceled, so let's see what happens with marketplaces. Marketplaces is basically offering third-party vendors and selling their products on your own site. That's what marketplaces would be for, where third-party vendors could subscribe, offer products, and they would be added to that retailer's site. So that's the overview of all of the different products. But what's basically this presentation about? It's B2C Commerce Cloud, the Demandware part, with everything that's attached, which is B2C Commerce Cloud. I'm not sure if you can see. So B2C Commerce Cloud, the PWA kit, the headless storefront, and omni-channel inventory. Though we're not going to go deeply into this, but more into what's the difference. Because I think within the Salesforce ecosystem, I see a lot of people saying, I want to get into Commerce Cloud, but I don't know where to start. And I think the biggest thing that people need to know when going into B2C Commerce Cloud is the difference. It's an acquired product. It does not run on core. You will have a completely different admin interface. It's closer to being with Experience Cloud, because you're building something customer facing. You have thousands, millions of orders being created on a yearly basis. We're talking about large retail vendors offering a public site where people can buy products. It's something completely different than what you usually build on the core. Of course, you have B2B and D2C, but the volumes that run on Demandware are larger than those other products. One of the first things that's so different is it's a different login. So we have a generic account manager, it's called, where we create a login, and then we can log into all of the different environments with that single login instead of a org-specific login. We do not have wizard installers. If you're talking about how any third-party integration would happen, it would be an unmanaged package always. There are no next, install this link to my environment. You will always need a developer to put custom code on the environment. So there's nothing that an admin, for example, would be able to install and then just configure. There's always someone technical required to plug in everything. It does offer a lot of configuration options. If we have the time, I'll show the business manager to really show you what the difference is from the admin console that you would normally have within Salesforce. Is there anyone completely new to Salesforce? All right. So if you see demos, sandboxes, etc., that interface is going to be completely different with other configuration options. Roles and permissions, for example, is also a very large difference. You have a very extensive roles and permissions model within the Salesforce CRM. We have an easier roles and permission model within B2C Commerce Cloud. You basically have an object, you have read access or you have write access. No record specific. You can see products or you can edit products, or you cannot see them at all, so free options technically. So that's a large difference. And again, for that unmanaged, we call them cartridges, where all of the custom code is in. So in third-party integrations with a PIM system, a product information management system, would be a cartridge, which would be an unmanaged package if we're talking in Salesforce terms. So those are, and well, one of the other things is for non-technical people, we have flow in Salesforce. This does not exist within B2C Commerce Cloud. It's code only. There used to be something called pipelines, which actually worked pretty similar to flow, where you would just drag and drop blocks, get product, you enter some parameters, and it would give you a product object, and you could modify it. You could drag and drop basically your code together and create custom actions, well, blocks, which would be your own custom code. But that has been deprecated and replaced by full code. So there's no process builder or workflows or flow that exists within B2C Commerce Cloud. It does in B2B and D2C, sorry, because that's on the core platform. So that's important if we're talking about Commerce Cloud, B2B, and D2C. That is on Experience Cloud in the Lightning Web Runtime, and there you will have Apex, etc., and Flow. So what are also some differences is that B2C compared to B2B and D2C is that both of the platforms are considered to be monolithic in nature. But when we look at the core platform, there's APIs, options, there being new features being added regularly. And for everything, there's an API. For B2C, there is only a REST API, and only, I think since the last year, an API first approach was taking that everything that is configurable will also be able to be configured with an API. The headless storefront that I talked about, it is currently available for B2C, and I think by the end of 2024, last time I heard, it would be added to the B2B and D2C offering. So for B2B, you have the Lightning Web Runtime to develop in, Lightning Web Components, but not the headless storefront. As for program, I'm going to go quickly over this because we have no developers in the audience. But if we're going to look at the development options, on a B2C, we have JavaScript. Back and the front end is both in JavaScript. CSS, Bootstrap, React for the headless storefront, and REST services. While on B2B and D2C, we have Apex, Flow, the Lightning Web Runtime, and also the API options available. Let's go into the roles. So if we're looking from a partner perspective, the usual roles that we have on a project is a business analyst or a functional lead. Basically the person who will talk to the business saying, okay, what do you want? What do you want on a website? What features are we going to offer the customer to make sure that they will convert, they will buy our products, and how to get there. They will be in contact with the customer constantly, looking for new innovative ways on what the market is happening, together with the architect who will design how are we going to be building all of those requires, and is it even possible to build what we can. Because just like Salesforce, we have something called quota limits, which we cannot cross. There are how many products do you have, we need to think about performance, etc. So some requirements are a bit harder than others. And at the end, we have also the technical lead and front-end and back-end developer. So there's a clear, I think if we're talking in Salesforce terms, the front-end developer would be building the Lightning Web Runtime, and the back-end developer would be building Apex. But in both cases, for Commerce Cloud, we would have JavaScript developers. In the front-end, maybe for headless, they would be React-based, while in the back-end, it would be a flavor of JavaScript, but not pure JavaScript, because it's actually Java behind the scenes, and there's some sort of translation happening behind the scenes. But of course, there's a lot more roles that happen in a context of a B2C. So I can't make, the Shirtforce has not made a t-shirt for every role that's available in a B2C project. But what we need to think about is, if you're looking to start a new career, is where do I want to be part of this B2C experience? Because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of customer-facing things going on. So we have 4 different sections where you can be part of the ecosystem, where you're basically at the customer side, a retailer, a luxury brand, where you would be part of the team. You can be part of the consultancy firm, a partner that does the implementation of Commerce Cloud and all of the other products. Or you could be part of a partner ISV. Now, we've recently migrated, I think, starting this year to the App Exchange. Before we were on our separate marketplace with B2C Commerce Cloud, but only recently we've been put on the App Exchange. But again, it's not a wizard installer. It's basically usually a link to the website to buy the product or to download the cartridge so that someone can install it for you. And lastly, well, you can go to Salesforce if you want to do that. So let's zoom in on if you're at the customer. What you're going to notice is that there is a role missing. There is no admin. If you're looking at B2C Commerce Cloud, the admin role technically does not exist. There's no way to keep someone full-time busy with the configuration and setting things up. Usually, someone is responsible for a certain aspect of configuration. What are the different things that happen? Content creation, blog posts, maybe the FAQ needs some updating. The product information needs to be set correctly. SEO needs to be checked on the products. But in general, once the configuration has happened, not a lot of things change except maybe some data and optimization for the different aspects. There's an AI involved. You might want to fine-tune some recommendations, like I'm looking at a t-shirt and we want to make sure that the AI is giving the correct pants to match with that t-shirt, well, basically completing the look. And in general, they're called merchandisers, the people who will be managing the administrative side of the environment. Next to that, for customers, a lot of brands choose to have their internal developer team and also their own architects. Especially the larger brands will have either their own development team or a mix from a partner and their own internal people. There are some brands who will let all of the development, all of the product management, etc., be done by a partner. What is also an option if you are a marketeer right now is to slowly get into B2C Commerce Cloud, is to put yourself also into the marketing as B2C, because usually another product like Marketing Cloud, emailing is done by a third-party system, and there we have Marketing Cloud in most of our projects that is connected to B2C Commerce Cloud. So that gives a possible opportunity to slowly also check what's happening in B2C Commerce Cloud and learn the platform that way. So on the partner side, you have the sales, of course. As a partner, we need to sell ourselves, why we should be implementing your product, your project, and building your website. We have business analysts, consultants, and developers, of course. We have architects that we need to build on those projects. And this is how a potential career path, I mean, all of the arrows can go in all of the different directions. You can have a career switch midway, going from a consultant maybe to sales. I mean, on that, you'll have to look inside of the company, what roles are available and what you like doing. But this is a potential growth path that you might be going through, from a developer to more of a technical consultant and then finally become a technical director. What you can also do as a developer is mainly go to a technical architect position or a solution architect. as an option. But that's from the developer perspective. From business analysts, what we also see is that a lot move to project management or combine the business analyst with project management and then generally to delivery. And then the partner ISV, which is a special case for B2C Commerce Cloud in general in B2C. And why is that? Is that usually third-party integrations do not only integrate with B2C Commerce Cloud. From what I've noticed is that most third parties sometimes don't even have a cartridge available for B2C Commerce Cloud. Mostly for other products like Shopify, the lower budget options, which do have options for a wizard installer. Shopify, for example, does allow you to install plugins without the need of a developer. But for Commerce Cloud, that is necessary. So if you do choose to go to the ISV route for a partner that does development or creates a plugin for Commerce Cloud, it might be that you will be in a multi-target team that has similar development languages to build plugins not just for Commerce Cloud, but maybe also for B2B, Salesforce B2B, Commerce Cloud in Apex and Lightning Web Runtime, or for Shopify, depending on what your skill set is, and well, basically also for the analysis and business development. So that's one to really think about, is that it's not simply targeting Salesforce. So how do you get started? So if you're still saying, okay, I need to learn more about B2C Commerce Cloud, where do I get started? Can I get a sandbox? Unfortunately, the answer for the past few years has been no. It's still on the, it's improving, but it's not possible for someone to get a sandbox without being part of the partnership with Salesforce. So you need to work for a partner, and they will have credits, so they can launch a sandbox, and there you can practice on, which is completely different from the core platform. Now, there's no developers in the room, unfortunately. For developers, there is a route to start, is that the composable storefront, so the headless front end, is open source, and you can run it locally on your device, and it's connected to a sandbox run by Salesforce. I'm not going to go into much detail in this case. And Trailhead. So you will not have access to a business manager, as it's called, the administrative console, but there are trails available for consultant. So I'm going to leave the QR code if anyone wants to scan. Probably the presentation and the video will be shared later if you want these QR codes. I'll give you a minute to scan or take a picture, and I'll switch to the next one. All right, then for the architect role, there is also a trailhead available, a trail mix of a few 40 hours, I believe, of modules that you can follow about the different aspects of Salesforce B2C Commerce Cloud. And the final one, combining basically consultant and architects, about 64 hours of content, according to Trailhead, that you can go through, learning all of the different modules that's available, which I will not be going into detail, like search on a B2C Commerce Cloud site. How does the AI work? How do you manage products inside of the Business Manager, etc. Going on to all of the different aspects that are available on Trailhead. And the amount of trails is growing compared to a few years ago where we had, I think 4 years ago we had 10 badges maybe, but now it's grown quite well. Now, we're now 15 minutes, so I'm exactly on time for Q&A. I had a question on the app, I believe, on how should you, well, basically on the in the ecosystem as it grows, how can you add value as a consultant, as a developer or architect? I'm not sure which role it was. How do you add value? If we're talking about an SI, what clients demand the most is that we are the advisor, that we tell them, okay, this is what's happening inside of the market. We had to release with Apple with their new vision device, how can this be applied to e-commerce? How can we maybe create an application where people can buy visually, have the interface work well together with what Apple is doing? How can we use AI? So now Einstein GPT for commerce was released for product descriptions. But what other applications can you use it that Salesforce is currently not building? How can we improve basically conversion? With conversion, I mean how many people actually buy versus visits. So if 100 people visit your site and 2 people buy, you have a conversion rate of 2%. How do you get that to go up? Do promotions work, etc.? And what do we see in the market that we need to do as a consultant or as a developer? What do we need to implement to make people want to buy more, basically, on a commerce site? Are there any other questions? Yes?
You mentioned Experience Cloud
yeah.
in your talk. So I guess like if you were using Experience Cloud, if you were using Experience Cloud and you were potentially thinking about a use case of maybe looking to sort of sell a product so a customer can buy through Experience Cloud, is that like a scenario or a use case where you could use one of the commerce products?
Yeah. If it's direct to consumer, I'm not sure if it's from a B2B perspective or as a retailer itself.
B2B in this.
Yeah. So if you are B2B and you already have B2B commerce, for example, then the offering D2C is the solution for that. So that's where you would directly sell to the consumer on Experience Cloud.
Right.
So that would then D2C would be the solution, depending on the volume. Because and the features that you want, because D2C does not have all of the features yet that B2C has. I think it's there's a lot of things on the roadmap to make sure that D2C has all of the features that current Demandware has. But on Experience Cloud D2C to sell products via that or building it yourself, but it makes more sense to use the pre-built D2C template that's offered.
Great, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? And maybe otherwise I'll quickly try to show the business manager to give you an idea of how different the administrative console looks. And if my mouse wants to work, there we go. Is it showing? Yeah, it's showing. Oh. So this is how I log into Commerce Cloud. If it wants to get my password. There we go. Let's see. Authenticator approve. Really? I'm wearing the wrong shirt. Should have worn my demo shirt. Let's try again. There we go. So this is the administrative console of B2C Commerce Cloud. Looks nothing than the Salesforce admin settings that you're used to. And in this case, we have like channels that you can select, sites they're called. If we're looking at a brand that is operating in multiple countries or maybe different regions, you could technically create a site for Europe, for the US, for Asia, for example. And each of them would have their own administrative console configuration that you could do specifically for that region. And if we go into one of those channels, you're going to see that you will have a lot of stuff that you can configure. We have, well, I'll try to use this thing. Content management. So what are we talking with content? We're talking about your blog posts, your campaign landing pages. So maybe in Marketing Cloud, you create a campaign where you're doing a holiday season product launch or maybe a big discount on a certain amount of products, you would be creating your pages here and then directing people from Marketing Cloud to those pages. You can categorize all of that content to your heart's desire. Let's see how much time I have left. All right. And then, well, basically have people utilize that content. Customers, so this is where you would be managing everyone that's registered on your site. You would be looking at addresses, information that they put into the registration form, and that's the account they will be using to log in and actually purchase products from the site. There's also something called custom objects, which is similar to Salesforce, where you create your own object, you add custom attributes of specific type, and you use that in code or visualize them in the business manager to do your own custom things. Now, this is not as extensive as the Salesforce platform. There's also a limitation of only 400,000 records per, well, I'm just going to say 400,000 to 800,000, depending on how you set it up, which is not a lot. So for example, if you would have a custom object record for each account, you would only have room for about 400 to 800,000 records linked to that account, which is not a lot because most projects will have millions of people registered on the environment. SEO, so that's also a role that you could be, is a search engine optimization specialist. There's a few people in the ecosystem who do nothing than this for projects. Where you would be configuring pages, make sure that all of the information is correct, that Google likes your site, and boom. Not sure why. And there's a few people specialized, but usually those people also do multiple platforms. They are platform agnostic, not just Commerce Cloud, but also maybe a Shopify Plus, etc. Products and catalogs, this is where you'll be managing all of your products and catalogs. There's a few menu items that's custom on this environment. So OpenAI, for example, is something that we added. That's not in here, but we can add our own custom menu items to pages that no longer exist. Ordering, managing all of the orders that people place. And search, for example, is a very big configuration option. Making sure that people find the products that they want is also something that can keep someone busy for a very, very long time, and it will be continuously needed to be updated to make sure that people find products, maybe seasonal products, and be sent to the correct products at the right time. Marketing, so your campaigns, promotions, 10% discount, 15% discount is where you would configure that. And there's also analytics and reports and dashboards on a separate site, not built into the platform per se, but it's a separate URL where all of the analytics, like how many products were bought, the revenue, conversion rate, performance of the environment, and a lot more. I'm not sure if anyone has a question about this interface. Because that's basically, I mean, it's not like you're used to in Salesforce and what you're seeing. So this takes a few years to find your way in, especially in certain roles. You might only be touching 10% of all of these menu items for the first couple of years. I think it took me about 4 years before I touched every single menu item that's available in this administration. Especially as a developer, you don't need to access this, but as an architect and a functional role, this is where you would be living, basically, next to the documentation and how things work. No questions anymore that anyone has? Yes?
How big is the current market amount for Commerce Cloud?
Do you mean within the Salesforce ecosystem or in general? In the Salesforce ecosystem, we're a very small percentage. So it's a niche within Salesforce. I'll repeat the question. So how big is the Salesforce Commerce Cloud percentage within the entire Salesforce ecosystem? I think Salesforce showed a slide at Connections or Dreamforce last year. I think it was 10%, yeah. About 5 to 10%, no, I think 5% even of the total of what Salesforce, so a very small percentage. And that's why Salesforce also says there's a big opportunity for growth, especially on the B2B and the B2C market for other customers that already have Marketing Cloud, CRM, etc., to add Commerce Cloud to the mix, basically combining different products together. And that's what we also do as a SI, is we don't only do Commerce Cloud, we also do Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, so that basically with Marketing Cloud we can get the customers to decide. And if they place an order or have problems with orders, we have Service Cloud to assist them in their journey. A chat on the website, for example, could be Service Cloud. So there's a lot of mingling of products. I'm going to show my face again because otherwise it's going to shut down again. So in general, it's a mix, but it's a small percentage in total from Salesforce.
And in terms of carrier, how demanded is?
Hmm?
In terms of carrier, how demanded is?
In terms of
carrier, if people want to get to Commerce Cloud or moving to Commerce Cloud.
you mean
carrier,
as a customer, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in the US, the market percentage is about 22%. So there's a lot of, in Europe and in Asia, there's a large growth. I think this year, budget is winning. But there's a lot, especially because of all of the options that Salesforce has to offer. It's an interesting, it's a good choice because of all of the different features that built in. And with the headless offering and the composable architecture that they're calling it now, it's a very good option for the future. But I think there are also other options on the market. We're talking about commerce tools, we're talking about Shopify Plus, which are gaining, they're gaining ground. But that's the competitiveness of the market, of course, and for Salesforce to also add innovative features to stay ahead of the other options. But from a pricing perspective, for example, Shopify Plus is a lot cheaper on the licensing cost than B2C Commerce Cloud. So the pricing is, I think, the biggest challenge to convince a customer saying, okay, why does it cost so much more than Shopify Plus? Well, there's a lot of features that would justify the price, but it's, of course, up to the partner and Salesforce to convince the customer that all of those features are worth the price that the licensing costs. The licensing is also completely different from the platform. It's based on your revenue, so GMV, rather than per user basis. So you can have as many logins as you want for B2C Commerce Cloud. There can be as many customers registering as you want, but you're basically paying with, the more you sell online, the more Salesforce makes, so the more that Salesforce is, wanting for you to have more revenue, because that's how the licensing works. Any other questions? 1 minute left, I think. Yes?
You touched upon price, but what are some of the other key features that you just referenced that make this better than, say, Shopify Plus? What are the key advantages there?
Well, the biggest thing is the models. So the product model behind the scenes, you have so many different ways. I think Shopify has variations, for example, but only up to 100 per master product, while Salesforce Commerce Cloud can go up to 1,000. There's recommendations, you have the AI engine built in, you have the search engine with a lot of customizations available that Shopify Plus just does not offer out of the box. And what we notice with Shopify Plus is if you start installing a lot of plugins and you don't watch out what you're doing, then the site will become slower, etc., depending on what type of plugins you do. And from a developer perspective, it's very quick, just like Shopify, to do development, because you start also from a template. But a lot of the stuff like the content management system, Page Designer as it's called, it's all built in. Now, Salesforce says it's not the best of breed, but for most retailers, it's sufficient. It provides enough options to keep going for a couple of years. But if you see, okay, it's not completely up to snuff to what we expect, but in general, most of the options inside of the platform that are built in are sufficient for most retailers and even the large retail clients. So there's a lot built in. And for Shopify, you're going to quickly have to go to the marketplace for certain features. Wishlist, for example, is very extensive within Salesforce Commerce Cloud, while for Shopify Plus, you would probably have to go to a third party, which will host your wishlist on an external site, not actually linked with what your information has. So that's where the differentiation happens, is you get a lot of options within the platform, and you do not have to go to third parties. But third-party ecosystem is large enough to support any retailer, if that answers your question. All right. And I think we're at time. So if anyone has questions, feel free to pop over. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anthony from DSelect. And what is DSelect as a platform? It is essentially a way to enable marketers that use the Salesforce Marketing Cloud to get more out of their data. DSelect serves both non-technical marketers, for instance those who do not know how to write SQL queries, as well as technical marketers who are very well versed in the platform but who are looking for ways to be more efficient or who just want to enable their less technical colleagues. DSelect is an official Salesforce Marketing Cloud partner that offers the leading marketing data enablement platform on AppExchange. Fortune 500 leaders and mid-sized businesses leverage DSelect's intuitive solutions to help marketing teams create more powerful segmented audiences, control marketing communication frequency, and achieve faster Marketing Cloud ROI without code or technical dependencies.